Humble beginnings. Amara Okafor stood before the vintage sewing machine her grandmother had gifted her, fingers tracing the worn metal as though it held secrets. The small apartment she shared with her roommate smelled of fabric softener and strong coffee, the unofficial perfume of fashion students pulling all-nighters. Outside, Chicago's autumn wind rattled the windows, but inside, scraps of emerald silk and repurposed denim covered every surface, testament to her latest project. "You're going to be late," called Prisha from the doorway, already dressed for the university's semester showcase. And you know Professor Winters hates tardiness more than she hates uninspired hemlines. Amara nodded, carefully wrapping her creation in tissue paper. Unlike her classmates who would arrive with designs crafted from expensive materials purchased with parental credit cards, Amara's evening gown was fashioned from a thrift store curtain. Vintage beading and fabric remnants salvaged from a closing tailor shop. Where they saw limitations, she saw possibilities. "It's different," Prisha said, examining the gown with a critical eye.
But different.
Could be exactly what catches the industry scout's attention. The event was held in the university's Grand Hall, transformed for the evening with runway lighting and chairs arranged for Chicago's fashion elite. Amara's heart pounded as she hung her creation alongside pieces that screamed of privilege and access to resources she could only dream of. "Well, if it isn't the dumpster diver," came a smooth voice that made Amara's shoulders tense. Julian Reed, heir to a luxury retail empire and the unofficial king of their program, stood examining her gown with theatrical distaste. "Seriously, Amara? You expect to be taken seriously with this? What is this? Former living room decor?" Julian's circle of admirers tittered appreciatively. Their laughter felt like tiny pins pricking her confidence. "It's sustainable fashion," Amara replied, voice steadier than her nerves. "Some of us care about more than labels. Sustainability is just the excuse poor designers use when they can't afford proper materials." Julian smirked, running manicured fingers along his own creation, a sleek, minimalist design in imported Japanese silk. "The industry cares about luxury and craftsmanship, not your little recycling project." Before Amara could respond, Professor Winters appeared, clipboard in hand. "Places, everyone. Scouts are arriving." The showcase proceeded with each student presenting their work. When Amara's turn came, she spoke passionately about accessible fashion and environmental impact. A few industry representatives nodded with interest, particularly an older woman with silver-streaked hair who scribbled notes throughout Amara's presentation. Afterward, as students mingled with potential mentors and employers, Julian made sure to position himself between Amara and any important connections. "You should talk to Amara about her thrift store aesthetic," he would say, with a condescending smile. So, charitable. The evening ended with Julian collecting several business cards and Amara clutching just one from Delia Moreno, design director at a small but respected sustainable label. "Your work shows promise," Delia had told her quietly. "And more importantly, purpose. Call me when you graduate." Walking home through Chicago's chilly streets, Amara held that card like a talisman. Julian's mockery might sting, but tonight had shown her that her vision had value only to those who looked beyond the surface. Her phone buzzed with a text from Prisha. "Don't let him get to you. Your time will come." Amara smiled, tucking the phone away. Her time would indeed come. And when it did, she would make sure everyone, especially Julian Reed, would remember the designer who turned limitation into innovation and mockery into motivation. Stitching dreams 3 years after graduation, Amara's tiny studio space in an old converted warehouse buzzed with activity. What had begun as a one-woman operation in her apartment had grown into reborn threads, a small but dedicated team of 5 who shared her vision for sustainable, accessible fashion. "The order from that boutique in Portland just doubled," announced Tenzin, Amara's business partner and the organizational genius who kept their fledgling company from drowning in chaos. "They sold out of your transformed denim collection in 2 weeks." Amara looked up from the dress form where she was pinning a jacket made from reclaimed leather and vintage military canvas. "That's incredible." Can we handle the production timeline? If we bring in the two part-timers from last month? Yes, Tenzin replied, already typing notes into their scheduling app. But we need to talk about scaling soon. Can't keep turning down opportunities because we're at capacity. Growth was a bittersweet challenge. Amara had built Reborn Threads on principles that larger production would test fair wages, sustainable practices, and personal quality control. Yet demand for her unique pieces had steadily climbed as eco-conscious. Fashion gained traction beyond niche markets. The bell above their studio door chimed, and Prisha walked in, now a successful stylist for indie film productions. "Guess who I just saw featured in Fashion Forward magazine?" she asked. Slapping the glossy publication onto Amara's workbench, Julian Reed's perfectly composed face stared up from the page, next to a headline declaring him luxury's new visionary. After college, he had stepped directly into his family's business, launching his own premium line that fashion media couldn't stop praising. His quote about sustainable fashion is particularly charming, Prisha said, pointing to a highlighted section. Julian had been asked about the industry's shift towards sustainability. It's a nice marketing angle for brands, targeting middle market consumers with guilt complexes, he'd responded. But true luxury will always prioritize exclusivity and exceptional materials over recycled gimmicks. Amara's face burned as she recognized the thinly veiled reference to designers like herself. 3 years had passed, yet Julian's dismissiveness remained unchanged. "He's hosting a charity gala next month," Prisha continued. "All the major industry players will be there. I'm styling one of the presenters, so I scored an extra invitation." She slid a heavy cream envelope across the table. "Time to show him what recycled gimmicks can really look like." Mara hesitated. "I don't know, Prish. We're swamped with orders. Playing status games with Julian isn't exactly on my business plan." "It's not about Julian," Tenzin interjected, examining the invitation. "The Sustainable Fashion Initiative will be announcing their annual grant recipients there. Exposure alone could solve our scaling issues." That evening, after her team had left, Mara stayed late, sketching designs for what she might wear to challenge Julian's territory. Her phone rang with an unknown number. "Is this Amara Okafor?" asked a crisp, accented voice. "This is Valeria Sorokin from Voss Innovations. Our founder, Nikolai Voss, is interested in discussing a potential collaboration with Reborn Threads." Mara nearly dropped her pencil. Nikolai Voss was legendary, a Russian-born tech entrepreneur whose fortune was built on revolutionary clean energy patents. Recently, he'd been investing in sustainable businesses across industries, but his interest in fashion was unexpected. "Mr. Voss was particularly impressed by your waterless dyeing techniques," Valeria continued. "He believes your processes could scale without compromising your ethics." 2 days later, Amara found herself in the sleek downtown offices of Voss Innovations, explaining her vision to Nikolai himself. Tall, quietly intense man with thoughtful eyes and a reputation for seeing potential where others saw limitations. "The fashion industry creates more pollution than international aviation and shipping combined," Nikolai noted, examining one of Amara's samples. "Yet most solutions focus on marketing rather than meaningful change." "That's exactly why I started Reborn Threads," Amara replied. "Beautiful clothes shouldn't come at an ugly cost to people or the planet." By meeting's end, Nikolai had proposed not just investment, but partnership funding for a larger studio, sustainable materials, research, and advanced equipment that would allow Reborn Threads to grow without compromise. As Amara left the building, contract in hand, her phone buzzed with a reminder about Julian's gala. Now just 3 weeks away. The playing field had suddenly shifted. She was no longer the struggling designer Julian could easily dismiss. With Nikolai Voss's backing and her own proven talent, Amara was becoming exactly what Julian had always insisted she couldn't be. A serious contender in an industry built on exclusivity. She texted Prisha about that gala invitation. "I think I'll accept after all." Walking toward the train station, Amara felt lighter than she had in years. The path ahead still held challenges, but for the first time, she had resources to match her vision and, perhaps, the chance to redefine what luxury truly meant in a world that desperately needed new values. The turning tide, the new reborn. Thread Studio occupied the entire top floor of a renovated factory building in Chicago's West Loop. Skylights flooded the space with natural light, illuminating workstations where artisans transformed discarded materials into wearable art. In just 6 weeks, Nikolai Voss's investment had accelerated Amara's vision beyond what she'd thought possible. "The waterless dyeing unit arrives tomorrow," Nikolai said, walking beside Amara as they toured the expanded operation. Despite his billions, he preferred simple attire today. Dark jeans and a charcoal sweater made from recycled ocean plastic, one of Reborn Thread's recent innovations. "My engineers are eager to see your techniques scaled up." "Is it the fabric recovery program?" Amara asked, checking her tablet. Their most ambitious initiative involved collecting luxury garments, destined for landfills, and breaking them down to reclaim the fibers. "Already partnered with 16 hotels and 3 cruise lines," Nikolai replied. "The collection bins will be installed next week." What had begun as a business arrangement had evolved into something more complex. Nikolai wasn't a silent investor. He brought technical expertise and global connections that complemented Amara's creative vision. They'd fallen into an easy rhythm of collaboration, often working late into the night, challenging each other's assumptions about what sustainable fashion could achieve. "Have you decided what you're wearing to the gala?" Nikolai asked as they paused by the design wall, where sketches for their upcoming collection were displayed. Amara nodded toward a draped sketch at the center, a gown that would showcase every aspect of their sustainable innovations. "I'm calling it Phoenix. The entire bodice is made from recovered silk fibers from discarded wedding dresses, restructured using our low-impact bonding technique. And the color, derived from avocado pits and hibiscus flowers," she smiled. "No chemicals, minimal water usage." Nikolai studied the design with the same intensity he applied to engineering problems. "It's beautiful," he said finally. "And more importantly, it tells our story." "Our story?" The phrase lingered in Amara's mind long after Nikolai had left for his next meeting. When had his investment in her company become a shared narrative? Her contemplation was interrupted by Tenzin rushing in, looking uncharacteristically flustered. "You need to see this," he said, thrusting his phone toward her. On screen was Julian, Reed's latest interview in Vogue. The journalist had asked about rumors of his family's company outsourcing production to factories with questionable labor practices. Despite their luxury positioning, Julian's response was calculated deflection. While some brands distract consumers with sustainability gimmicks, Reed Luxury remains focused on craftsmanship traditions. "Speaking of distractions, I've heard that certain small eco-fashion labels are seeking wealthy backers to legitimize their hobby businesses. Passion projects are charming, but they're hardly the future of fashion." What? The thinly veiled reference to Amara's partnership with Nikolai was unmistakable. "He's worried," Tenzin said, reclaiming his phone. "Your collaboration with Nikolai is making waves. 3 major publications have requested interviews about Reborn Threads since the partnership announcement." Amara's phone chimed with a message from Valeria. "Nikolai's chief of staff. Reuters wants to profile you both before the gala. Nikolai says it's your call." The old Amara might have hesitated, preferring to let her work speak for itself. But Julian's continued dismissal of sustainable fashion as mere trends sparked something resolute within her. "Tell them yes," she replied. The following week transformed. Reborn Threads from industry whispered a headline news. The Reuters profile portrayed Amara and Nikolai as revolutionary partners, challenging fashion's environmental impact. Other coverage followed, highlighting their innovations and the striking contrast between Amara's approach and traditional luxury brands like Reed. 5 days before the gala, Amara received an unexpected visitor. Delia Moreno, the design director who had given Amara her first business card at that college showcase, appeared at the studio. "I left Reed Luxury last month," she announced without preamble. "Their sustainability initiative was pure greenwashing. When I saw what you're doing here," she gestured around the studio, "I knew I had to be part of real change." By the time Delia left, she had joined the Reborn Threads team as head of design. Education, a new initiative to share sustainable techniques with emerging designers. That evening, as Amara worked late finalizing the Phoenix gown, Nikolai returned from a business trip to Tokyo carrying a small wooden box. "A gift," he said, placing it beside her sketches. "For the gala." Inside lay a necklace of extraordinary beauty delicate golden threads interwoven with tiny emeralds that caught the light like dewdrops. The gold is reclaimed from discarded electronics, Nikolai explained. And the stones are lab-created using carbon captured from industrial emissions. Beauty without destruction. Their eyes met, and Amara recognized something had shifted between them, a connection beyond business, beyond mutual respect. There was tenderness in his gaze that mirrored her own feelings, complicated and unexpected. "Perfect for the Phoenix," she said softly, touching the necklace. As the gala approached, industry attention intensified. What had begun as Julian's exclusive? The event had transformed into a battlefield of competing visions. Traditional luxury versus conscious innovation. Exclusivity versus accessibility. Past versus future. And Amara, once dismissed as a thrift store dreamer, now stood at the forefront of fashion's most urgent conversation with resources recognition. And a partner who believed in her vision as deeply as she did. The stage was set for a reckoning that would reshape more than just her own story. Threads of triumph. The morning of the gala arrived with unexpected chaos. A last-minute alteration to the Phoenix gown required Amara's full attention. Simultaneous crises erupted across the studio, a shipment of reclaimed buttons delayed, a journalist arriving early for a promised tour, and the promotional materials for their upcoming collection still awaiting final approval. "Breathe," advised Tenzin, materializing at her side with a steaming cup of fair trade coffee. "Everything's under control. Delia is handling the journalist, the buttons have been located in customs, and I've reviewed the promotional materials myself." Amara sipped the coffee gratefully, and the seating arrangements for tonight. "Already confirmed, you and Nikolai are at table 3, close enough to the stage to make an impression, but not so close that Julian can conveniently spill champagne on your dress." Tenzin's practicality was grounding in the whirlwind their lives had become. The Phoenix gown hung on a dress form nearby, capturing scattered light from the skylights. What had begun as a statement piece had evolved into something more profound, a manifesto in fabric and thread. The bodice shimmered with recovered silk in gradients of copper and gold, while the skirt flowed like liquid fire, airs of gossamer-thin material created from regenerated textile waste. Every element told a story of transformation and rebirth. "Your masterpiece," came Nikolai's voice from the doorway. Amara turned to find him watching her with that intense focus that still made her pulse quicken. Over the past weeks, their partnership had deepened into something neither had anticipated, a connection built on shared vision, but sustained by mutual admiration that occasionally sparked into moments of something more. "Not a masterpiece yet," she replied, "but perhaps a beginning." He crossed to examine the gown more closely, his engineer's eye appreciating the technical innovations as much as the aesthetic achievement. "Julian Reed won't know what hit him." "This isn't about Julian," Amara insisted, though the words rang slightly hollow even to her own ears. Nikolai raised an eyebrow. "Isn't it? At least partly?" She sighed, abandoning pretense. "When someone tells you repeatedly that your vision is worthless, proving them wrong becomes ... motivating." "I understand motivation better than most," Nikolai replied. His own path from child of struggling immigrants to tech billionaire had been paved with people underestimating him. But tonight isn't about the past, it's about what happens next. By late afternoon, the studio transformed into a pre-gala preparation. Hub Amara's team would all attend, wearing pieces from the new collection, a calculated display of solidarity and statement. Hairstylists and makeup artists worked in the conference room, transforming designers and seamstresses into ambassadors. For the brand, Amara's phone buzzed with an industry alert. She opened it to find breaking news. Red Luxury had just announced a sustainable capsule collection to debut the following season, a transparent attempt to counter the growing buzz around reborn threads. Comments from fashion insiders ranged, from skeptical to cynical, many noting the convenient timing. "Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery," remarked Delia, reading over Amara's shoulder. And panic. At 6 o'clock, Prisha arrived. Already dressed in a midnight blue jumpsuit crafted from marine plastic waste, another Reborn Threads creation. "Your car will be here in an hour," she announced, "and the Phoenix requires its final fitting." Transformation from designer to statement maker was meticulous. As Amara slipped into the gown, she felt its weight both physical and symbolic. The recovered gold and emerald necklace Nikolai had given her completed the look. An elegant bridge between earth and innovation. "You look like everything Julian Reed fears," Prisha declared, adjusting the gown's train. "The future he can't control." Downstairs, two vehicles waited, a sleek hybrid sedan for the team, and for Amara and Nikolai, a vintage Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud, retrofitted with an electric engine. The ironic twist on luxury transportation had been Nikolai's idea, tradition reimagined for a sustainable future. "Nervous?" Nikolai asked as they settled into the Rolls-Royce's sumptuous interior. In his expertly tailored suit of innovative, recyclable wool, he exuded quiet confidence. "Not anymore," Amara replied, surprising herself with the truth of it. The years of doubt and struggle had burned away, leaving determination in their place. Tonight feels like destiny. As the Rolls-Royce glided through Chicago's evening traffic, Amara's phone lit up with notifications. Fashion bloggers were already posting about Reborn Thread's expected appearance at the gala. Industry veterans were speculating about the rumored partnership announcements. And somewhere in that opulent venue, Julian Reed was hosting an event that had evolved beyond his control. "Did I tell you," Nikolai said, breaking the contemplative silence, "that 3 major luxury conglomerates have approached me about investing?" In Reborn Threads, Amara turned to him in surprise. "You didn't... What did you tell them? That Reborn Threads isn't for sale?" His hand found hers in the dimness of the back seat. Some visions shouldn't be diluted by committee thinking. The touch of his fingers against hers felt like a promise of partnership, possibility, of a future where principles didn't require compromise. As the car approached the venue, camera flashes already illuminated the entrance, where early arrivals posed on the sustainable bamboo carpet replacing the traditional red. Reporters called questions to industry figures, while social media influencers live-streamed their commentary. "Ready?" Nikolai asked as the Rolls-Royce slowed to a stop. Amara took one final breath, centering herself in this pivotal moment. Everything that had led her here, the struggles, the mockery, the perseverance, crystallized into perfect clarity. "I've been ready my entire life," she replied. The car door opened to a burst of camera flashes and exclamations as the gathered press recognized the unexpected arrival. Nikolai emerged first, then extended his hand to Amara as she stepped out. The phoenix gown, catching the light like living flame. A wave of whispers spread through the crowd from inside the venue. Julian Reed, mid-conversation with potential investors, glanced toward the commotion at the entrance, champagne glass, paused halfway to his lips as recognition dawned. The reckoning had arrived. Golden Seams, the grand ballroom of the Sinclair Hotel, had been transformed into Julian Reed's vision of sustainable luxury. A carefully calculated aesthetic that showcased eco-consciousness without sacrificing exclusivity. Living walls of rare plants framed the entrance, while chandeliers of hand-blown recycled glass cast prismatic light across the space. Tablecloths of organic silk draped over tables adorned with centerpieces of endangered orchids, beautiful, rare, and utterly missing the point of true sustainability. Amara took it all in with a designer's critical eye as she and Nikolai moved. Through the crowd, the disconnect was glaring. An event theoretically celebrating sustainable fashion while embodying the very excesses the movement sought to address. "Quite the spectacle," Nikolai murmured, his hand resting lightly at the small of her back as they navigated the sea of fashion elite, though I count at least 3 endangered species used as decoration. Whispers followed their progress. The phoenix gown commanded attention, its innovative construction a walking contradiction to Julian's version of eco-luxury, where his approach added sustainable elements to traditional excess. Amara's creation reimagined the very concept of luxury itself, elevating reclaimed materials through ingenuity and purpose. They had barely reached their assigned table when Valeria appeared, tablet in hand. "Everyone's talking about the dress," she reported. 7 major publications have already requested exclusive features on the production process. and the Sustainable Fashion Initiative judges are asking to speak with you before the grant announcements. Amara nodded, maintaining composure despite the surge of vindication. This wasn't merely personal triumph. It was validation of her entire approach to fashion. Across the room, Julian Reed stood surrounded by his usual entourage, his expression calculating as he observed Amara's arrival. The competitive businessman in him recognized a threat. The strategist was already planning countermeasures. Amara Okafor, came his voice moments later as he appeared beside their table. What a surprise. I don't recall seeing Reborn Threads on the sponsor list. Personal invitation, Prisha interjected sweetly, appearing at Amara's side. I'm styling honoree Vivian Taylor tonight. Julian's smile tightened. And Mr. Voss, unexpected to see you in fashion circles. Innovation recognizes no industry boundaries. Nikolai replied evenly, much like short-sightedness. Before Julian could respond, the announcement chimes signaled guests to take their seats for dinner. He retreated with a final, measured look at Amara, one that acknowledged something had fundamentally shifted in their long-standing dynamic. Throughout the elaborately sustainable dinner featuring locally sourced ingredients with detailed carbon footprint calculations provided for each course, Amara found herself the center of attention. Design directors from major houses stopped by to introduce themselves. Influencers angled for photographs. Even celebrities known for their environmental advocacy sought conversations about potential collaborations. Your phoenix has risen indeed, Nikolai observed during a rare, quiet moment, his eyes reflecting genuine pride rather than vindication. Midway through the evening came the announcement Amara had been waiting for: the Sustainable Fashion Initiative grants. The presenter, a respected industry veteran, took the stage with appropriate gravitas. This year's recipients demonstrate that true sustainability requires reimagining systems, not merely adjusting existing ones, she began, words that seemed pointed in the context of the evening. When Reborn Threads was announced as the recipient of the initiative's largest grant for innovation in textile reclamation and waterless dyeing processes, the applause was thunderous. As Amara took the stage, she caught sight of Julian's face, composed but tight-lipped. The expression of someone witnessing the narrative slipping from his control. True luxury isn't about exclusivity, Amara said in her acceptance speech. The words coming from someplace authentic and earned. It's about intention, innovation, and impact. Beauty that costs our planet isn't beautiful at all. It's just expensive. The rest of the evening unfolded like a dream sequence. The Reborn Threads team celebrated at their table, future plans expanding with each conversation. 3 major retailers approached with distribution offers. A renowned fashion institute proposed a teaching partnership. Even a few of Julian's loyal followers drifted toward Amara's orbit, sensing the shifting center of gravity. It was past midnight when Amara finally stepped away from the whirlwind. Seeking a moment's respite on the venue's terrace, the Chicago skyline glittered against the darkness, a fitting backdrop for reflection. I once told you that sustainability was just a marketing angle, came Julian's voice as he appeared beside her at the balustrade. His usual smooth confidence had given way to something more contemplative. I believed it. Amara studied him, recognizing that this wasn't quite an apology, but perhaps as close as Julian Reed could manage. And now I think I was protecting a world that's already ending. He gazed out at the city lights. My family's company has dominated luxury fashion for 3 generations. Change means ... uncertainty. Change always means uncertainty, she replied. That's why it takes courage. Julian nodded slowly. Your dress tonight, it's remarkable craftsmanship. Coming from him, this represented significant concession. Thank you, Amara said simply, accepting the olive branch for what it was. They stood in silence for a moment before Julian spoke again. Reed Luxury is launching a sustainability division next quarter. We might benefit from consultation on authentic approaches. Before Amara could respond, the terrace door opened, and Nikolai appeared, his tall figure silhouetted against the interior light. The car's ready whenever you are, he said to Amara, acknowledging Julian with a brief nod. Something passed between the men, recognition of a battle concluded, if not quite resolved. "We should discuss that consultation, Amara," told Julian as she prepared to leave. "Real change requires authentic commitment, not just market positioning." Julian's smile held rueful acknowledgement. "I'm beginning to understand that." As Amara rejoined Nikolai, his hand found hers naturally. They moved through the now thinning crowd toward the exit, a united front of purpose and possibility. Outside, the electric Rolls-Royce waited, its classic lines a testament to the theme that had defined Amara's journey. The most enduring innovations honor tradition while boldly reimagining the future. 2. Nikolai asked as they settled into the back seat, the evening's triumph creating an intimate bubble around them. Amara considered the question in all its layers. Where to next? For her career, for Reborn Threads, for this connection with Nikolai that had grown beyond business into something precious and unexplored. Forward, she answered, meeting his gaze with certainty. Always forward. As the car pulled away from the gala that had marked her vindication, Amara realized that Julian's recognition, while satisfying, was no longer the victory that mattered most. The true triumph lay in remaining faithful to her vision when mockery was easier than persistence. When compromise tempted more strongly than principle, the phoenix gown caught the passing streetlights. Its reclaimed materials transformed by creativity and conviction into something transcendent, like Amara herself. It embodied the most powerful truth she had discovered on her journey. Authentic value isn't determined by others' perception, but by unwavering belief in one's own worth. In the quiet of the car, with the city lights streaming past and Nikolai's hand still wrapped around hers, Mara knew that this wasn't an ending, but a beginning of innovation, of influence, and of a love story as unexpected and transformative as every other aspect of her remarkable path. The Thrift store dreamer had become the visionary whose time had come, and no one, least of all Julian Reed, would ever underestimate her again.